Are you waiting for a new pair of AirPods Max? Well, I come bearing great news that a new version that's lighter is in the works, but there's a catch. Minchiko says these new Maxes will only go into mass production in 2027, which is quite a way. That's basically 2 years away. This does kinda line up with what Mark Gurman had told us. He said there are no concrete plans to update AirPods Max in a meaningful way, and I know some might be saying, of course there's no new model coming anytime soon, the new AirPods Max just released a few months ago, right? But here's the thing guys, that new model isn't actually all that new. Apple literally changed the port, added some new colours, and called it a day. And by literally not changing anything apart from a new port and some new shades, these $550 pairs of headphones are still technically worse than the AirPods Pro 2 and AirPods 4, since AirPods Max still uses the older H1 chipset. Now you're probably thinking, oh, that doesn't make a huge difference, it's just like A13 and A14, right? Well no, this does actually make a big difference because H1 and H2 does actually have substantial differences. H1 lacks support for big features like adaptive audio, conversational awareness, personalized volume, hearing aid functionality, voice isolation, and support for the wake words. That is quite a chunk of features that I love using with AirPods Pro, that these $550 pairs of headphones don't support. How does that make sense? You know what does make sense though? Subscribing to this channel, of course. It would bring you the latest about Apple right to the subscription box, so please consider it. It would be appreciated. Join the Saranbyte gang now. It's really weird they've done this because surely it would be cheap and simpler for Apple's supply chain to use H2 across the range. Also, on average, Apple updates every AirPods model every 3 years or so, and so for them to literally do nothing with the Maxes but give it Type-C nearly 4 years later is ludicrous. And what's funny is that Apple gave this Type-C in the first place because the European government is forcing them, and so if they're going to bother changing the design ever so slightly to accommodate the new port, they might as well give us other upgrades. I know AirPods Pro in 2023 did not get a huge update apart from the new port, but that's because they were already refreshed in a big way in 2022, unlike AirPods Max, which was last refreshed in 2020. That's a long time ago. That was COVID times, and we've come a long way since that. At the very least, if Apple couldn't be asked to change the hardware, they could have at least given us a price cut, but no, they have the audacity to charge the same bloody price for outdated hardware. And so if you're in the market for new over-the-ear headphones, just get the old Maxes because they're literally the same and have come down in price via third-party retailers. I've seen refurbished models go for as low as $300, and that is quite a decent saving. Though as I said, since Apple updates each AirPods model every 3 years or so on average, a 2027 release does add up, I guess, because the last update was in 2024. I just hope this new model does bring more substantial changes, and I have a list that Apple should take note of. Corey mentions the new AirPods Max should be lighter, and whilst he does not specify how they'll be reducing the weight, this is something they should absolutely focus on. Since Apple's fixated on using premium materials for all their products, the Maxes are much heavier than other pair headphones on the market. For comparison, the AirPods Max weigh 382 grams, and the recently announced Sony XM6s weigh 254 grams. That is a substantial difference, you will notice. Since lightness is important when it comes to something you wear, the lighter it is, the more comfortable it is on your head, especially for use over a long period of time. And so Apple needs to ditch aluminium and opt for a lighter material like plastic instead. The next upgrade I would like to see is battery life. In fact, if we saw the USB-C Maxes jump to the H2 chip, that alone would have improved the endurance by at least 1 to 2 hours. And it's a shame the battery stats didn't change because I think this is an area where AirPods Max could be better. Now yes, if you go on Apple's site, you will notice the Maxes destroy the other AirPods, which seems impressive, but then you realize that's just because they're bigger, and so of course they're better. But if you compare them to other headphones on the market like the Sony XM6s, these do fall a little short. Specifically, it's offering 10 hours less of endurance, and so it's time Apple matches the competition in this aspect. Audio upgrades also would have been appreciated. I mean, I know AirPods Max are already good, but it's not like the competition has stayed still in this aspect since they released. They have caught up, and so it would be nice to see them push the hardware and offer ANC and audio improvements with some new drivers maybe. The next thing I'm sure many absolutely want to see is a better case. Everyone basically agreed on the fact the original pair had a shockingly horrific smart case that wasn't really smart because it offered no protection whatsoever to the actual headphones, and surprisingly Apple didn't address this at all. The same stupid bra case is still here unchanged, and what's crazy is that we did see patents of a more traditional case that gave me some hope that Timothy had come to his senses, but I guess he then realized he's a cheapskate and doesn't want to spend the R&D developing a new case. Because hey, who wants a more traditional case that actually protects your headphones when you can force consumers to put up with this? Yay Apple, very nice of you. Also, I just realized it would have been cool to see the U1 chip in either a new case or the actual headphones themselves, since you'll be able to track them if they go missing, and this has been available on AirPods Pro 2 for a while now, so again, it's bizarre Apple cares so little about their most expensive pair of headphones. Another thing I'm also surprised Apple did not address is better water and sweat resistance. Now I know AirPods Max aren't really made for workouts, which is the main reason headphones usually get IP ratings. These bad boys are hefty, and so whilst you can actually do curls with them because they're so heavy, they're not really ideal as gym headphones, though as I said, Apple should reduce the weight and make them more comfortable for gym workouts. But why I bring up water resistance is not for the gym, it's because there is a condensation issue with the current pair, and so maybe to protect the internal components, I was under the assumption the USB-C pair would get an IP rating because no one wants their very expensive pair of headphones to randomly stop working because of a design flaw. But guess what? Apple has not addressed this at all, which means the USB-C model has the same condensation issue. What the hell are you guys doing at Cupertino? Why have you not tried to fix a design flaw? Do you want these headphones to have a short lifespan? Actually, knowing Apple, they probably do want these to have a short lifespan because they want you to keep buying new pairs of headphones. But it still blows my mind they have not sorted this out. I've seen many complain about the reliability of the OG Maxes in general, so clearly there's a lot of modifications that need to be done to make these last longer. So yes, whenever the new model launches in 2027, they should make these more reliable, because if they're going to charge a premium price, I expect these to last. And let's actually talk about that premium price tag, because undoubtedly Apple should reduce the price and make this more accessible to consumers, but unfortunately I don't think this will change. If anything, the rest of the industry has caught up to Apple's pricing. The new Sony XM6s, for example, now start at $449, which is only $100 less than the AirPods Max, but it would be nice to see these become more competitively priced, and so even a $100 price cut would be great. In fact, as I said earlier in the video, Apple should have ideally done this with the USB-C pair, but hopefully with this new version, if they do ditch aluminium and go with plastic instead, that could maybe help reduce the price. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and thank you for watching.